Blatant anti-Semitism is spreading like wildfire across American college campuses. So, what does an Israeli follower of Jesus who has served in the IDF think about that? Welcome to the Can I Trust the Bible live stream. I'm Raj Nair here in the TBN studios in Orange County, California, joined by my brother Yair Pinto in the TBN studios in Jerusalem. Yair, my brother, shalom.
Shalom, it's good to be here again. And this is, I think, a very important topic that we're going to discuss today. So I'm excited.
You know, it's kind of funny because you're about a 15-minute walk from the Temple Mount, and I'm about a 15-minute drive from Disneyland. So we're in two very different worlds. But I want to talk about something that's happening in my country. And as someone who's dedicated the past 10 years of their life to combating anti-Semitism and standing with the Jewish people, this is very personal. And I've been trying to figure out what word I want to use to describe how I feel. Is it angry? Is it mad? Is it sad? Is it confused? And I think it's a little bit of everything. You know, when Jewish students are afraid to show their Jewishness, when rabbis are advising Jewish students in the United States of America not to show their Jewishness, when a Israeli professor is barred from entering parts of campus at Columbia, when UCLA students are being physically assaulted as to not being able to go to this part of campus or that part of campus. I'm emotional because I don't think this is intellectual. I don't think this is something that you can rationalize in your mind. I think this is a spiritual. We'll get into all that. But as an Israeli follower of Jesus who has served in the IDF, what do you think when you see what's happening on our college campuses?
This is not a pro-Palestine protest or a pro-Free Palestine movement. This is a pro-Hamas, pro-terror, anti-Israel, and anti-Jewish demonstration. This is what it is. And the only reason that this can even make sense, and the fact that so many students are rallying behind these demonstrations, is that this is a spiritual war. That's the only way that I think, as a believer in Yeshua, I can make sense of all this, madness. And this is what it is. It's just madness.
Obviously, you've served in the IDF. You served in the IDF in Gaza recently. And when you hear the protesters say, there's only one solution, Intifada revolution, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, or some of the things you're starting to hear that is kind of almost new, where it's like, say it loud, say it clear. We don't want any Zionists here. What do you think about that?
So I spent 4 months, I served in the army a big portion of my life, I would say 5 years straight, and then every year for a month in reserves. And in this war for 4 months straight, 2 months of them in the border with Lebanon, and then 2 months in the Gaza Strip in Khan Yunis. So I know these guys, and I know their ideology. I've seen what they teach their children in schools, and it's to kill IDF soldiers, it's to kidnap Israelis, it's to hate the Jews, and their entire end goal and the end game is to conquer all of Israel, not to coexist, not to live side by side. It's to conquer all of Israel and basically to annihilate the Jewish people that live here. And after here, they will go to the Jewish people in the United States, in Europe, and in other places in the world. Sadly, history repeats itself again and again. And this is just another form of anti-Semitism that is popping out now in disguise of this liberalism and super educated people that want to think differently and to think out of the box. And it's all another deception of the enemy, very wise, very well planned, and very well funded by Qatar and other pro-Hamas and pro-terror states in the Middle East. This is very important to say. All these protesters are being heavily funded by Qatar and other pro-Hamas and pro-terrorism entities in the Middle East.
I think anti-Semitism should win the award for being the ultimate shape shifter. It always morphs into something that is politically correct. You can't be a Nazi anti-Semite anymore, but you can be an anti-Zionist
Yeah.
anti-Semite. And I think what's amazing is I have this friend who passed away. His name was Irving Roth. He was an Auschwitz survivor. And he had this thing that he would talk about. He would call it signpost along the way to Auschwitz. He would basically say, hey, listen, the Holocaust didn't start with Majdanek, Auschwitz, and Treblinka. It started with, the dehumanization of the Jewish people, the othering, these anti-Jewish laws, like, there's a little boycott here, a little boycott there. Then it ramps up with the Nuremberg laws, but don't worry about it. Kristallnacht. And I think what you're seeing here is the normalization of the othering. Oh, these are Zionists. These are less than human. These people have views and stances that we can't tolerate. And now somehow anti-Semitism just finds a way to sneak in. And as an Israeli, as someone who lives in Jerusalem, why do you help us understand anti-Semitism? Why do you think there's been this 4,000-year hatred of the Jewish people? If someone's watching this and they can't even comprehend it, in your opinion, Yair, what is anti-Semitism and why does it keep coming up just when we had prayed that it was over, never again, it'll never. And here we are. There are grandparents, great-grandparents who survived the Holocaust that must be just, I can't even imagine the words that they must be, saying to their grandchildren. Like, this is what we saw in Germany. This is what and so what is anti-Semitism in your opinion, Yair, and why does it always find a way to reemerge?
Oh, that can be like a full 2-hour answer, I think, just there about what is anti-Semitism. But let me give you a short version of what I think is the reason and the cause for this hatred for the Jewish people. Again, why would all this hatred come against these very tiny people? Also in Germany, the Jews were less than, a few percent of the entire population of Germany. I think most of the German people didn't even met a Jew face to face. And then they built up this whole picture of the Jews controlling the economy and destroying the country and trying to do bad things to the people. And the only reason that this is making sense, and it's the same story with Israel. Israel is a tiny, tiny country. And for our viewers in the United States, it's about the size of New Jersey. It's tiny in the Middle East. Jordan has a lot more land. Iran has way more land. Egypt, everybody is huge. Try to find Israel in the map. It will be very hard for you unless you have like a big map or just a map of the Middle East. And yet, the entire world, the entire news are talking and focusing on Israel. Try to think about it and ask yourself why. There are, terrible events and wars between people in other areas in the world, in Africa, in the East, in Europe, in Ukraine, but yet people keep focusing and coming back to Israel. And why is that? And it all comes back to the Bible and to the relationship between God and Abraham and the Jewish people. And when God makes a covenant with the Jewish people or with anybody, with any one of us, that covenant is forever. And that the enemy, the devil, cannot stand that. It cannot. And whenever we look at Israel, we see the covenant between God and men. And Amen. The enemy hates that, and he wants to destroy this bond. Because as long as Israel exists, as long as the Jewish people can worship the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, as long as we have a country and freedom, that means that God is winning, because his covenant with the Jewish people is alive and ongoing. And it's an encouragement to everyone around the world to believe in a God that is faithful. And the enemy is trying to do everything in his power. And he has a lot of power in this world. And he's trying to destroy this connection, destroy the Jewish people, destroy our moral values, and destroy Israel. And that's anti-Semitism. That's how it was in the biblical times. That's how it was in the times of the Holocaust. And here we are again, and it's happening again. The only difference is now we have a state, Israel. So instead of focus this hatred against Jews, they focus it against the state of Israel, against Zionism.
And I think it's an important distinction is some people say that Israel was created because of the Holocaust. And I think it's important to say that Israel was created in spite of the Holocaust. Can you imagine if Israel would have existed 20 years earlier? What could have
Yeah.
been? You know,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research and I've tried to understand like why anti-Semitism. And I've heard lectures, I've seen all the documentaries, and there was this one rabbi who gave a presentation in Jerusalem that just it connected all the dots. And he basically said this: what's the common theme? Jews control this or that's all bogus, and those excuses always
Yeah.
change. And he basically he said he showed us this one lyric, this one passage from a Hitler Youth song that totally opened my eyes. I got it. So this is I'm paraphrasing what the Hitler Youth song said. Basically, get rid of the Jewish people, blah blah blah. Quote, because we want to be pagans again. I think the existence of the Jewish people is a certificate that the Lion of the tribe of Judah is roaring. And what he stands for is an affront to the enemy, that we are all created in God's image, no matter what ethnicity, no matter if you have a disability, no matter if you're a foreigner, you have an inherent value. It's not survival of the fittest. We've been created in the image of God, and that is an affront to the enemy. And I think, I know there's going to be people watching this that are going to immediately go off, and I can hear it already. The comments, oh, this is Israeli propaganda. This is Jewish propaganda. Yeah. I'm not Jewish. I just have a heart for the Jewish people because I read my Bible and I love the Jewish people. But I can hear the comments already. And so we have people that are watching this live stream right now, wherever it might be. It's 9:13 in California. And for some reason, then they're angry. They're like, oh, I want to refute Yair. This is all bogus. But they're watching. To their credit, they're watching. Yair, if you could have a direct line with someone at UCLA who is preventing Jewish students from entering campus or worse, assaulting them, and they're watching this reluctantly, they're watching this ready to just prove them wrong, but you have this audience with them, and my friend here is watching, what would you say to a protester, Yair?
Well, first of all, I think that a key point in all these protests and in all this anti-Israel demonstration is misinformation and deception, okay? And these people are smart. They don't go to elite universities for nothing. They are smart, and I would ask them to use their mind, to research, to open a map, to open a Bible, to open the history book, to Google the charter and the values of Hamas, of this terror organization that they're, protesting for, of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, of all their charters. It's all public knowledge, and understand on which side do you want to be on, in which country, if it's led by Israel, by the Israeli values, or if it's led by Hamas and by the Palestinian authorities' values, okay? Read both Israel, the Declaration of Independence of Israel, and the charters of Hamas, and you decide where do you want to raise your kids and where do you want to live, okay? After you do this research, you decide if you want to keep protesting for Hamas, for a terrorist organization, go ahead. I cannot argue with you and I cannot convince you, but please do your research and don't just go after what is cool, what is trendy, what sounds good, like all these slogans from the river to the sea. They're super catchy, I agree. And I bet to being a pro-Palestinian is the cool thing to do if you want to be popular in college. But let's be smarter than that. You are going to be the leaders of the United States, the next leaders of Europe, the leaders of this world. So please do your research and make sure you're on the right side of history.
You often hear this slogan, well, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm anti-Zionist. Hear that a lot. Unpack that for me, Yair. I obviously have many opinions on that statement, but what's the difference to you?
Well, let's break it down even more, okay? So Jews are only one tribe of the 12 tribes of Israel, of the country of Israel. So Israel is basically bigger than just the Jewish people. And Zionism is even bigger than just the tribes of Israel. It's a bigger ideology. And if you are anti-Zionist, it includes all of the above, all of the other things, Israel, the Jewish people inside of them. It just became accepted politically. So for me, it's just another form of anti-Semitism. It's another form of hatred, just with a different word that has become accepted politically these days.
You know, I think what you said earlier is actually a really good exercise. I actually read the Israeli Declaration of, I'd been standing with the Jewish people for years and visiting Israel, but once I read the Israeli Declaration of Independence, I was like, this should be step one for people that are interested in Israel. The Israeli Declaration of Independence, read it. It'll take your breath away. Okay, I want to go to this. I don't know how else to phrase this. When people turn on their television, excuse me, and they see Palestinians in tents, Palestinians dying. You know, I have personal friends who have family members who have been killed in Gaza. And they would say, well, I'm not necessarily protesting for Hamas. I'm protesting against Israeli fill in the blank genocide, whatever these accusations are, against Palestinians in Gaza. And I know there's military answers for that, but you are a follower of Yeshua, and I want an answer for folks that's Holy Spirit breathed. How can we reconcile that idea that these folks are protesting what they see as a humanitarian cause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I think that the best way to answer this question is to look at the facts, to look at Israel. Israel is basically the only country in the Middle East that is democratic. We have Arab parliament members, we have Christian parliament members, we have Jewish parliament members. We are all combined together, and all of us have the freedom to believe whatever we want to believe. Okay, so I'm a Jew, and I believe in Jesus. Okay, and there are Muslims here, friends of mine also, and there are Christians that are not Jewish that live here, and they have all the equal rights. Okay, look at the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip has only Arabs. There are no Jews there because we moved out of it. So I understand all the hard feelings about looking at suffering families, children, women in the Gaza Strip. It is hard. It's very hard also for me to look at it as a soldier, and I understand the strategic value and that the IDF must go inside. And as I do it, I also pray, and I've been advocating for prayer for the Palestinian civilian population during this war. Because listen, the only future that they have will be if the IDF and if Israel destroys Hamas. This is a terrorist organization that does not care about them at all. And we've seen them taking the humanitarian aid food, and they still do it in Rafah and stealing it from them. They sell it back to them at high costs. They take them and place them in harm's way in areas that the IDF is preparing to launch attacks. And if the IDF is calling on the Palestinian civilian population to evacuate an area before it launches an attack, which just to start with, it doesn't make any sense militarily because also the terrorists will go away. So we do that, and then what they do, they fire at their own people, the civilian population, in order to prevent them from escaping that area so that there will be more casualties and it will look bad on TV. This is the war. This is the war that we're fighting, and this is a war that terrorists fight all the time. Terrorists use the media. They use shocking images in order to scare the population. So terrorists are a minority, but they do extreme things in order to scare the majority and to shift the opinions. So that's what they're doing. And I would just ask people to pray, okay? Pray for God's help in understanding the big picture, because it's very hard to understand on which side you want to be on. And I can assure you that the Palestinian civilian population are suffering tremendously because of Hamas and because of this war. And me and my fellow IDF soldiers really feel sorry for them. And we helped whatever civilian we could find in the Gaza Strip during this war. So personally, that's what we did. It's very hard to, to justify a picture of a family that is wounded or harmed in a war.
Well, I can only imagine how isolating and scary of a time this must be for Jewish people, not just in Israel, but in New York, in Boston, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, and for whatever absolutely insignificant gesture this means. As for me and my family, we will always stand with the Jewish people. We will always speak life and speak truth about our Jewish brothers and sisters. And we want to say that you're not alone. But in closing, Yair, you've already kind of mentioned this, but as a follower of Jesus, how can Christians, I guess two questions. Why should Christians in America care about the rise of anti-Semitism in our own country? And then what should we be doing to combat it, whether prayer or other things?
Okay, let me start by also making something clear. The Jewish people and the people of Israel are not special. We're not holy. The only reason that the enemy hates us so much is because we remind everybody in the world of God's covenant and faithfulness to everybody, not just to the Jewish people. Okay, so he picked Israel in the Bible to make an example for the whole world to see. We are not holy, we are not special. But all of you back at home need to care about the rise of anti-Semitism, because it always starts with the Jews, then it moves on to Christians. Okay, so that's why it should matter to you. It starts in the Middle East, but it never stays in the Middle East. Hamas, Iran, all these extreme Muslim ideologies start small and then they start expanding and growing and reaching more places around the world. That's what they want to do. So if you don't stop evil when it's small, it will grow and grow and reach your doorsteps. So it's better to tackle something that you know is wrong and bad when it's small before it manifests and becomes big, and then it's a problem that you have to deal with. So that's why it should matter for Christians all over the world. And there is a bond between Jews and Christian, and it's all because we serve the same God, same Bible, same God. That's why we need to stay united together as brothers. Okay, we are all one new man. We need to be united. This is a battle for all of us. This is a spiritual battle, and the devil, the enemy, does not care if you're Jew, if you're a Jew, if you're a Christian, or what is written on your passport. He cares about your heart. And that's what he's attacking. And that's what we need to pray for. We need to pray for truth. We need to pray for the truth to come out from Zion, from Israel, to the rest of the world. We need to help these people that are protesting, that don't understand what is going on, and that are just being led by other forces, by the fear of being left out, and by other things that are pushing them. We need to pray for them to open their eyes, to do their research, to understand what they are fighting for, and to realize the truth. Okay, I believe that many of these protesters, that God loves them, and we need to pray that they will have a personal revelation of Amen. God, because He loves them. And I want to see a revival in these university campuses. Just believe how amazing that will be if out of this Columbia University, of all these pro-Palestinians with the scarves, it will be a revival for Jesus, and people will start to worship His name. That is what I want to pray for, and I think this is what we should aim for, because out of the most darkest situation in the world, and this is something that I learned in the past 6 months in this war, that out of the worst possible situations, God creates the most amazing opportunities for revival, to spread His name, to share His love. So I believe that God can use this terrible time in campus universities to create a huge revival of students that believe in him. So I think that we should all really unite in prayer for that, for the truth, and for our revival on campus universities in the Ivy League in the United States.
Amen to that. Yair, toda rabah. Love you so much. God bless, my brother.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Hey, I'm Raj Nair. Thank you for watching the Can I Trust the Bible YouTube channel. We hope this video gave you compelling evidence to trust in the validity of the Bible. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And ask your questions in the comments and share the video with your friends and skeptics. Thanks for watching. See you next time.